Welcome back to Getting Real, the podcast where we go beneath the surface of success and talk about what it really takes to lead, build, and stay human in the process. Today we're joined by Mr. Robert R. Wilson, founder and CEO of R2C Inc., an award-winning, service-disabled, veteran-owned small business headquartered in Huntsville, Alabama. For over 27 years, Robert has lived at the intersection of aviation, innovation, and national defense. From serving in Operation Desert Storm to now leading one of the most respected technology and logistics companies supporting America's warfighter, R2C's mission is simple but powerful. Provide the most advanced, adaptable, and ethical technology solutions to empower those who defend our freedom. This is a story about leadership, loyalty, and legacy. Robert, thank you for being here.
It's really a pleasure. Great to be with you.
I guess we'll start off talking about the journey, the mission behind the man. You've built a company that serves one of the most sacred missions imaginable, supporting the men and women who defend our freedom. Where did that calling begin for you? Was it something that you always felt, or did it evolve through your military experience?
Well, I think that calling started out as a kid, really, to be honest with you. So my father was a World War II veteran. He was in all the great battles, made the invasion of D-Day, went through the Battle of the Bulge, wounded in the Ardennes Forest, so on and so forth. He was with the 5th Rangers. So if you see Saving Private Ryan, you saw my father's beachhead. That's where he came up. I was there last year. I have no earthly idea how those men actually made it off that beachhead. It was incredible. But growing up in a family like that, you're always thinking about all of the needs that a soldier has or warfighter has as they go in and they execute the mission on the ground. So where the rubber really meets the road, you don't have the luxury of having something that works part of the time. It's got to work, and it's got to work every time. So really that's kind of always been our mindset of how do we provide the best solutions, the best products, the best services to make sure that our warfighters can go out, prosecute the mission, do their job, and come back home alive. Because really, in the end, that's kind of what we're hoping to do, and that's what we're trying to do.
So talk to me about your story a little bit, I guess, and for the sake of those listening in. Tell me the story, because you have a very interesting background serving for our country, going back when you maybe didn't have to, and then all the different lessons learned along the way to get you here.
Yeah, so I was a soldier in Desert Shield and Desert Storm, and a few other missions along the way as well. And again, the whole idea when you're on the ground and you're trying to figure out what it takes to complete your mission, to make it faster, to make it better, to watch out for your fellow soldiers left and right, and make sure that everything works. You get some really good ideas. So in a lot of ways, we really didn't have some of the tools that we have today that are quick reaction that take those lessons learned from the battlefield directly into a manufacturing setting or a prototyping setting that really pushes it out, makes the change, and gets it back. So I'll give you a great story. This was not a Desert Shield, Desert Storm aspect. This is actually something that happened probably about 20 years ago, about 15, 20 years ago. When we first started putting Black Hawks in country over in Afghanistan, the Black Hawk helicopter has a flare system, so it drops a flare and it takes away the missile aspect and stuff. The missile misses and so on. Well, that works, and it works really well, but it also takes a while to reset. In fact, it took quite a while to reset, about 45 seconds, which doesn't sound like a lot if you're sitting back in a chair and relaxing and watching television. But when people are shooting at you, it has a tendency to be a long time. So one of the crewmen on the helicopter, literally on the back of a napkin, drew up an idea on how to reset the system by merely just putting a toggle switch in to where they could reset it, and then they would have another run. So what the enemy was doing at the time was they were shooting one missile, and that one was being defeated. But right behind that missile, a second one was being fired about 4 or 5 seconds behind it, and the second one started hitting them, and they actually started taking down some of our helicopters with RPGs, which there's no reason that should have to happen. So by introducing that toggle, we took that off the table. We made that happen in about 75 hours, not days, and certainly not months, hours. From the time that it was drawn out on a napkin, we actually designed it, built it, sent teams out to the field halfway around the world, literally, and implemented it into aircraft that were sitting on the ground getting ready to go fly missions. That's a beautiful story, and the amount of lives that changed and that saved, not to mention equipment and everything else and so on. It's just off the hook crazy. So it's those types of ideas, and it's those types of things that we have today that we didn't necessarily have in some of those cases, back when I was on the ground as a fighter.
Yeah, I mean, you save one life. You can't put a price on a life. So it's like
you save one helicopter, you probably save more than one. You probably saved anywhere between about 5 to about 25, right? I mean, because it's carrying troops. So great things that can happen, and that feedback loop of actually listening to those folks on the battlefield and what they're experiencing and what they're seeing. And hey, they've got great ideas too. They may not have an engineering degree, but gosh darn, they know what they need. And if we can listen to them and we can take that idea and we can draw that up and build it and get it turned back out to them, in a really, really rapid manner, that's what it's all about. I mean, seriously, Dan, I mean, that changes lives. That changes the entire trajectory of what's going on.
Yeah, it's funny. They'll ask in job interviews, what gets you out of bed in the morning? I think that's probably one of the best answers that you could give, that story right there. So let me ask you, 27 years in aviation, nearly 2 decades in program and project management, lifetime service and structure. What moment made you say it's time for me to build my own company, my own culture, do things my own way?
Well, I've been very, very blessed where I'm at. Huntsville, Alabama is a tremendous place. We have more engineers per capita here than any city in the nation. Advanced degrees left, right, and center. Engineers are all over the place. I mean, it's woven into the fabric. So it's a beautiful and wonderful place to do business. But for me, I had an opportunity to go do something that was really more soldier focused than what I was doing at the time. So when I first came 20 years ago, I was working in project offices, working with a lot of acquisition type things. So I got to see a lot of how the new weapon systems were being brought in, what we were doing for new equipment training, how we were addressing the fieldings, things of that nature. Then I went into about a 5.5, 6 year time frame where I was supporting a group doing prototyping and that one-off stuff that like we were just talking about, right? From there, I went to a really, really large company that really taught me a lot about process, and it taught me a lot about some of the things to really look for and focus on from a business perspective. But when the time came back and the opportunity approached us and said, "Hey, we've got some challenges here. Can you come over here and help us out?" It just seemed like the right call to get back to the focus of the soldier and the warfighter and what it is they need in some of those small areas. So, we're still quite small. We're only about 140 some people. We're scattered out over about 13 states and have a little bit of an international presence right now too. But at the same point, gosh, when I started, my whole concept was, hey, maybe we'll have 5 or 6 people and we'll go out and do fun stuff, support our customer, and hopefully save some lives. And I mean, that was the general idea. But truthfully speaking, God had different plans for that. And, as you'll hear, most entrepreneurs will tell you, working God's plan is a whole lot better than working my plan. So we just go with it and go from there.
Love that. I want to dig deeper a little bit just into values, culture, leadership. Um, R2C has this really strong ethos, it seems: service, professionalism, integrity, loyalty, family. What you would call a can-do attitude. How do those values take shape? Were they born out of military principles, out of personal conviction?
Yeah, so certainly it grounds in faith, right? Um, I'd always said that you should prioritize your life, and I tell my people this as well. You should prioritize your life. Um, the priority that I ask for from my employees is that R2C to be their number 4 priority, and we're happy to have God, family, and country be above us. I think that's a fair thing to ask, actually. So it kind of grounds there, and then it's the question of, let's focus on who our customer really is and who our end user really is, and let's look at what they're doing. I mean, they're putting their life on the line. They are making sure that we get to live that American dream, that we get to experience living in a place, in a space where our kids can grow up, and we're not hauled off to gulag somewhere and stuff, and so on and so forth. So those are huge and important things that our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and I guess spacemen now kind of take care of, right? So those are our end users. Those are the people that we've got to take care of, and by taking care of them, they take care of us. It's a beautiful concept.
So tell me more about how you've supported the spacemen, because I'm personally interested, and I just think that is that's so cool. I know it's been around for a while.
Yeah, so as I was saying, the mission has been there for years and years and years. It had just been really split up a lot. So the Navy had done, quite a bit of stuff in space as well, with communication, satellite work, things of that nature, especially once you get out into the maritime environment. So they had an interest that was there. Obviously, the Army, the Army's entire communication system, not entire, but a huge part of the communication system is based off satellites and things of that nature. So you had to work with space there as well. And of course, the Air Force also. The Air Force has been flying close to that envelope the entire time. So really and truly, when President Trump put together Space Force, what he really did was he really took different elements from all 3 of those services. They pulled them together, and that became the baseline for what Space Force was. And as far as, hey, is it necessary? Gosh darn, it really is necessary, because if we don't have a handle on what's going on there, that's where the real battles will be fought in this next paradigm. I mean, it's just a fact. So the idea of having to protect that real estate and understanding what's there is absolutely paramount to national security.
Thank you for humoring me. I needed to poke around at that one.
Absolutely.
You've managed to scale R2C without losing that family atmosphere. That's rare in defense contracting. It's been the key to maintaining culture. What has been that key to maintaining the culture as it's grown? This idea that was supposed to be 5 or 6 people has now turned into 147.
Well, again, not my plan, God's plan. So, we just go with it, right? I think the key is staying focused on the concept of who our end user is and who our customer is. I think that's the big part that's there. And then making sure that the people that you bring on and the people that you bring into the environment all have a good understanding of what that exactly is and what it entails. So it starts at the top, and it works its way down. So you have to hire the right leaders. You have to be in your leadership has to be in sync together as one, and then that entire attitude and that entire expectation gets pushed all the way down to the very bottom. That also means that you listen from the bottom up as well. Because again, as I was talking about, battlefield earlier before, and good ideas coming from there, good ideas come from everywhere. You know, General Patton once said, don't tell a soldier how to do something, just tell them what you want done, because they'll surprise you with how it actually gets done. And I think that's I think that's a leadership trait that really needs to be emphasized a little bit more, and pressed forward a little bit more. It is systems, it is processes, and that's all well and good, but you can't take that to such a level that you take away the innovation and the ingenuity of the person who does this job day in and day out, and take away the ability for them to really just make it happen, and bring forth some great ideas.
It's great. I want to tap into leadership a little bit more, whether it's on the tarmac or in the war zone or in a boardroom. What's a principle that's guided you most consistently in terms of leadership?
Yeah, so I was enlisted. I was a non-commissioned officer in the U.S. military, so I was not in the officer corps. But what I did see is I saw that the best officers and the best leaders were the ones who took capable non-commissioned officers, told them what they wanted done, and then cleared obstacles, got out of the way, and let them go execute the mission. And that's something that I've taken on as well, in my positions here and in other places also. I find capable people, I empower them, and I let them go execute. That's what they're there for. In most cases, in many of our cases, because we're small, they're very project oriented and project sensitive, and a lot of times they are the subject matter expert in that area. So leaning on that capability helps just a whole lot with the success of the projects.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like if you have the right people around you, and if you can trust everybody around you to do what they need to do, then you have that's half the battle, right? Is
Yeah,
it?
absolutely. So I think it was Dr. Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey, who said that if you have someone who can do the job that you're doing at least 80% as well as you are doing it, you need to delegate it. And there's a lot of truth to that. And there's a lot of reasons for doing that. It's not just taking things off your plate, it's also getting your team ready for that next leadership step, right? So the more people that you can empower, the more that you can give them these opportunities. That's also part of training. So you're training them for not only doing the job that they're doing, but also for stepping forward into bigger and broader roles. And any company as it grows, right now, at about 140, 150 people, this is an area where most companies start running into some major growing pains because they haven't taken that time with some of these junior people to move them into these roles. But I'm incredibly blessed, and we have so many veterans that are here anyway. So it's just a natural thing that they just kind of roll into, and it works really, really well.
I appreciate you talking. I've been sort of beating you up over culture and family. Let's talk about technology, AI, and the future. Um, Huntsville is quickly becoming one of the nation's epicenters for defense innovation and advanced tech. How do you see R2C positioning itself in that ecosystem over the next decade?
As far as artificial intelligence goes and machine learning, these are things that we've been doing long before the general public even
knew what it was. So we had really cut our teeth on in some of the early days on unmanned systems, underwater unmanned systems, aerial systems, things of that nature, and so on. So some of the things that we done on artificial intelligence on early on was we used it as a target recognition tool. In fact, we won an award on that about 3 years ago. This is something that we started out talking to, believe it or not, talking to some of the folks in Las Vegas, because the folks in Las Vegas use facial recognition when they start trying to look at people that are trying to game their tables and stuff and so on, card counters and things of that nature. So found that to be pretty impressive. We went out, we sat down, we talked with them, looked at some of the things that they were doing, looked at some of the things that were successful. And then we started looking at some of the signatures of some of the foreign weapon systems that we would be facing, and we began to identify those, and we put those into some large databases and some large models, and we were able to look at them and predict them, and make our sensors pick up certain things that gave us warning well in advance. And that became some of the basis of some of our UUV stuff and so on. So it was pretty neat. We've been working with it for quite some time. Now on the AI business model things, which is probably what you're really most interested or meant to talk about before, was like everybody's involved in artificial intelligence in some way, form, or fashion. I mean, you have to be in order to stay abreast of what's going on today. I mean, it's just that simple. So, yeah, with that, we try to push some of our AI inward looking and outward looking into some of our models, so that we can get faster and more efficient. So, as an example, on a proposal, you have typically a 30-day turnaround in order to write about 50 pages that has to be incredibly precise and exact and answer all the questions of a solicitation that is, sometimes 400 or 500 pages thick, right? So when you're doing that, you know, typically you've been working on this project for about 2 years before it even comes out as a request for proposal. And when it does, then you've got a 30-day timeline in order to turn that around into a finished document. So you've got a lot of that written, you've got a lot of research done, you've got a lot of things taken care of. What artificial intelligence has the ability to do is to compress that timeline from when you get that RFP to that first rough draft, if you will. So maybe a 60% solution. So typically in a proposal cycle, that would take somewhere around about 14 to 17 days. So we've been able to compress that and pull that back to the left to where it's.
So I want to build off of that. You built a business that integrates service to God, country, and community. How do you personally stay grounded as a CEO, a veteran, and as a man?
Well, again, earlier in the episode, we were talking about, priorities and prioritization in life. So God, family, country, work, right? And I think you have to get those first three priorities, in place before you can ever even get the work involved. In a perfect world, faith, family, country, and work, they all meld together and they all intertwine and they all intersect to really strengthen you and give you drive and help you to go forward. in a not so perfect world, when everything else is going wrong, faith is what holds you together. You place your faith in God, you move forward, and everything will be fun.
That you say it with that level of confidence, because I think that's, especially for the younger generation that's, been removed from faith, they need people like you that live it, embody it, believe it, and that it's just who you are.
Fear not and have courage, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Um I know I think I have that on my wall over here. When you strip away the titles, the certifications, the awards, who is Robert Wilson at his core?
When you take everything away, simply put, I'm a Christian, I'm a father, I was a husband, and you again kind of just walk right down that concept and that path, right? Try to be a good man, try to be a good friend, and try to leave this world a little bit better than you found it. In the end, that's all we can ever do. I mean, we're only here for a short time. To try to make things better is what we're really here for, and hopefully learn some lessons along the way.
You look back in your journey from serving in Desert Storm to leading R2C today. What do you want your people, your family, your community to remember about you?
Probably just that I've done my job, done my duty, and tried to do what was right. That's all we can. That's the best we can all do.
Before we go, I always like to ask a couple questions. Any advice that you've gotten from a mentor along the way, that's worth sharing to the audience?
Um, so I read a great book some years ago by Trevor Moab. It takes what it takes, and it is phenomenal in that kind of the way that he says it. Get rid of the stinkin thinking, right? It's all about not necessarily having a positive mindset, but having a neutral mindset, and by that, positive thinking might not always work, but we know that negative thinking always does, right? So get rid of the negativity. It's amazing what we can do. It's amazing what we can accomplish when we believe. If we believe we can do it, we can achieve it. It's that simple. I can't explain it necessarily, but gosh, no. If you look at the entire technological run, or at least say the last 100 years, and this is something I remember my father saying, back when, in the 1970s, he said, hey, when I was a child, and that would have been, back in the 20s and the 30s, right? We had Buck Rogers in the 21st century flying around on, with a man pack. About 20 years after that, cartoon episode stuff and so on, it really existed. What we can imagine and what we can believe in and what we can do, we can turn that into reality. A great president, Ronald Reagan, once said, if we put the right people around the table and no one cares who gets the credit, what we can accomplish is almost anything.
I have to give you a compliment. You're fantastic at pulling these amazing, profound quotes right when they're needed. Since you're so good at this, I'm going to put you on the spot again. Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite quote in a world where you have a number of these great quotes that are just ready to go?
Well, I've got two. So it's my personal motto is work like it all depends on you and pray like it all depends on God. It does. And then the other one, my son has heard it so many times, and people around me as well. Get up, suit up, show up. If you can do that, 85% of the battle's already won.
Yeah. And when you think back, showing up is more than half the battle, right?
Well, absolutely. And again, it goes back to some of the military aspects and some of the things that we were always taught. You get up early, you make your bed, you get dressed, and you show up for work. And obviously showing up today, has a little bit of a different connotation than just, showing up, Joe Sixpack at the factory and stuff and so on. Showing up means a lot from the perspective of where you're at, what you're doing when you're there, how you're interacting with people. Are you putting yourself out there? Are you making the connections that you need to do? All of that comes into play, right? And that's a great big thing that always has to take place in order for you to be successful. But gosh, again, get up, suit up, show up. If you can do those things, 85%, 85% of the battle's done.
That's great. So I guess as we're wrapping up here, thinking about your legacy, not just for R2C, but for the men and women who you've served alongside and who've served alongside you, for the next generation of leaders coming up behind you, how do you want to be remembered, and what advice do you have for them?
Well, it's not so much of a remembering thing from my perspective. Um, but some advice that I would give is have a plan. Have a plan for the different parts of your life. Have a plan for the different segments that you're going to work through. We're well past the days where the average life expectancy is 60 years, and we're well past the time frames where you get out of university and you go to work for a company and you stay there for your entire career. It's just not what happens today. It's not part of the culture. So have a plan. Plan it out a little bit. Map it out. Um, Gosh, find a whiteboard and dry erase markers, and go at it. And then when you think you have that figured out, it'll change. But just like the whole planning concept that we talked about before, you'll have contingencies to look at. So let me give you some great examples. There's all kinds of people that are out there that are in the United States military right now. They're gonna be in the military for 20 years. And 20 years sounds like a heck of a long time. And in some ways it is. But if they came into the military at 18, they're walking out with a full retirement. After 20 years, they're 38 years old. The 38 years old is just a little bit too young to be sitting on the porch in a rocking chair. So it just doesn't work out that way today. So think about what that next stage begins to look like. Are you going to be an entrepreneur or are you going to be an entrepreneur? Are you going to go to work for a very large company and try to rise up through the ranks in that, or are you going to start your own company and make the mistakes and hopefully blood, sweat, and tears doesn't kill you by the time you've made those mistakes and you've survived them, right? So look at all of those things and decide what that is. And so for me, for my generation, it was always, hey, plan for two careers. Plan for that first one where you're out there running around and perhaps don't have it all figured out from what perspective it is that you want to go do and accomplish and so on, but have some type of a path moving forward and let that happen, allow that to happen. But I will go one further. We talked about artificial intelligence and quantum computing and things of that nature earlier. I think you need to really, especially people that are under the age of 30. If you're an entrepreneur and you're under the age of 30, I think you really have to have a plan, and you have to have a plan for probably 100 years. And I don't say that in jest, and I certainly don't say it lighthearted, because I think the possibility, in fact, I would say the probability that a 30-year-old could potentially live to be 150 is a very, very real probability. So when you take that into consideration, I think you have to have the mindset correct. I think you have to have your mind right in order to make some of these transitions. So probably about 10 years ago or so, I came to the realization that I'll never retire. And that's because from a business perspective, if I'm interested in something, what I want to do is I want to start a business. I want to dig into it. I want to research it. I want to look at it. I want to learn about it. I want to experience it as a business and wrap a business around it. It's the easiest way for access. It's the easiest way to monetize it. And it's the easiest way to really get interested in the research in and of itself. So I'll never retire because there's always going to be something I'm interested in. And it doesn't matter if it's importing and exporting wine, or if it's, working in the software side, working, in sales somewhere, or mentorship, or whatever that is. It's going to change. So change is the only constant that we have in the world. So we have to embrace that. So as we run our race with the companies that we have, understand that we're going to get to a certain point to where we're going to transition. And as we transition away from those things, make sure we're going to something, not from something. I think that's the biggest piece of advice that I can give really and truly to anybody out there, but specifically the younger people. Having the mindset right is what's going to allow you to not only be successful, but also allow that longevity and allow you to actually really and truly change your family tree and do some amazing things for society and help humanity grow.
I'm never going to retire because there's something about it where they have the blue zone studies of people who live the longest and are the happiest, and they're not aspiring to drink margaritas on a beach someday.
Yeah,
like
and don't get me wrong, I'm fine with margaritas on the beach, but gosh darn, man, after about a week, that stuff gets old, right? Sometimes you've got to use what's in your head, opposed to using your head as a battering ram to run against things. It's just really and truly part of it. So I think that as we age, as we get older, hopefully wiser, right? That we can take some of those lessons learned and we can turn that into something that's incredibly useful for the entire body of knowledge and all of humanity.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being here today. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the work that you do now. Thank you for the culture that you've built. And I'm really wishing you the best here as you head into, what seems to be a cloudy Q4 on your way to a 5X trajectory. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Robert R. Wilson, a man whose definition of success is measured not just in contracts or capabilities, but in service, integrity, and the lives empowered by his work under God. For those, Robert, that want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to learn more about what you do or to get in touch with you?
So as far as R2C goes, our website is www.r2c-inc.com. Look us up there. Always happy to connect. And there'll be other links there as well, LinkedIn and some other things and so on. So, and anything that we can do to help, even if it's just opening a conversation and talking about what our hopes, dreams, and plans are for the future. Happy to have that conversation as well. So, again, it's not about getting your piece of the pie. It's about making the whole pie bigger, right? And if we can do that, there's more than enough to go around. It's just, let's get out there, grow it, and do it, and have fun with it.
Yeah, it's some amazing lessons from the conversation today. I appreciate you taking on us a journey from combat zones to corporate command. Your story about true leadership is about actually showing up, what you talked about, and for something bigger than yourself. And I really appreciate what you brought to the episode today. And for those that are listening, if this episode inspires you at all, please share it with somebody who leads with purpose, like Robert. And Robert, thank you for getting real with me today.
Truly a pleasure. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate everything, and best of luck, and enjoy.
Yeah, thank you so much.